How to stop overthinking. Overthinking is a mental loop that traps many people. It's that constant, overwhelming stream of thoughts that runs in the background of your mind, creating a web of doubts, fears, and anxieties. Overthinking often masquerades as a way to solve problems, but in reality, it usually does the opposite. Instead of finding solutions, you end up in a never-ending cycle of second-guessing, re-evaluating, and worst-case scenario planning. But why does overthinking happen in the first place? At its core, overthinking is often tied to uncertainty. As humans, we naturally seek control and certainty in our lives. We want to predict the future, avoid mistakes, and be fully prepared for every possible outcome. When things feel unpredictable, or when we face situations that seem overwhelming, our minds attempt to compensate by analyzing every possible angle, replaying scenarios, and ruminating over what-ifs. It's an attempt to create security where there is none. The modern world fuels this habit even more. With the pressure to be perfect, make the right choices, and succeed in every aspect of life, the mental weight can become unbearable. Social media, for example, plays a role in amplifying this problem. Constantly seeing others' success and highlight reels can lead us to feel inadequate, making us obsess over our own decisions and life path. What we often forget is that no amount of overthinking will grant us control over the future. This constant mental chatter can feel productive because we convince ourselves we are preparing or making progress, but in reality, overthinking is a form of procrastination. We avoid taking action by staying trapped in our thoughts, dissecting each possibility and never reaching a conclusion. It's an illusion of productivity that feeds into self-doubt and anxiety. When we're caught in this spiral, even the smallest decision can feel monumental, leading to analysis paralysis, where we are so overwhelmed by options that we make no decision at all. The truth is, overthinking is exhausting, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. It can drain your energy, leaving you feeling tired, anxious, and paralyzed by indecision. It isolates you in a loop of internal dialogue, making it harder to connect with the present moment or enjoy life. Worst of all, it doesn't lead to better outcomes. In fact, it often leads to worse ones. Overthinkers tend to get stuck on their failures and shortcomings, magnifying them in their minds, which only worsens their stress and anxiety. Breaking free from overthinking begins with understanding that this habit is rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of making the wrong decision, fear of uncertainty. The key is to recognize when you're falling into this pattern and to start shifting your focus. Instead of obsessing over what you can't control, you must learn to embrace uncertainty and trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. After all, overthinking won't prevent failure. It will only make you more afraid of it. The effects of overthinking can seep into every aspect of your life, often without you even realizing it. It's not just a mental problem, it has tangible consequences on your emotional well-being, relationships, and even your physical health. The most immediate impact of overthinking is the constant state of stress and anxiety it creates. Your mind is always racing, replaying past events or anticipating future ones. You're living in a state of hypervigilance, where every minor detail becomes something to be analyzed, dissected, and worried about. This endless mental chatter prevents you from being present. You might be physically with friends or family, but mentally you're somewhere else, caught up in your thoughts. Over time, this disconnect can strain relationships. People might feel like you're distant or uninterested when in reality, your mind is just too preoccupied with internal worries. The more you overthink, the less connected you feel to those around you. And ironically, this can create even more anxiety as you begin to worry about your social connections and how others perceive you. On a personal level, overthinking robs you of peace. Instead of enjoying simple moments, your brain is constantly busy. You could be relaxing on a weekend or taking a walk, but your mind is elsewhere, ruminating over things you can't control. This constant state of worry can lead to emotional exhaustion. You become irritable, impatient, and increasingly overwhelmed by life's normal challenges. It's as if your mental energy is being drained by the constant need to analyze every aspect of your existence. But the consequences of overthinking aren't just mental or emotional, they're physical too. Chronic stress, which is often a result of overthinking, has been linked to a range of health issues. It can increase your risk of heart disease, weaken your immune system, and lead to sleep problems. Overthinkers often struggle with insomnia because their minds are so active that they can't switch off, even when they're supposed to be resting. Over time, lack of sleep only exacerbates the problem, making it harder to cope with daily stressors and increasing the likelihood of falling into the overthinking trap. One of the most destructive effects of overthinking is its ability to paralyze you when it comes to decision-making. This is what's often referred to as analysis paralysis. The more you think about a problem, the more uncertain you become. You weigh every option, consider every possible outcome, and second-guess every choice, until you're so overwhelmed that you end up making no decision at all, or making one that you later regret. Ironically, the more you analyze, the less clarity you seem to have. Overthinking doesn't provide more answers, it just creates more questions. This paralysis also affects your ability to take action in your life. Whether it's pursuing a new opportunity, ending a toxic relationship, or starting a personal project, overthinking can keep you stuck in place. You become so wrapped up in the what-ifs that you never take the first step. It's a vicious cycle. The more you overthink, the more you feel incapable of making decisions, and the more you avoid taking action, the more you feel inadequate or stuck. Ultimately, overthinking erodes your confidence. It makes you doubt yourself and your decisions, leading to a lack of trust in your own judgment. And when you don't trust yourself, you become dependent on external validation, constantly seeking the opinions of others to reassure you that you're making the right choice. But the truth is, no one else can give you the certainty you're looking for. That can only come from within, and overthinking slowly chips away at that internal sense of self-assurance. One of the most important steps in overcoming overthinking is identifying the triggers that cause it. Overthinking doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are usually specific situations, thoughts, or emotions that set off the chain reaction of endless analysis and doubt. By understanding what these triggers are, you can start to catch yourself before you spiral out of control. But what exactly causes this cycle to begin? A common trigger for overthinking is uncertainty. When faced with a situation where the outcome is unknown, many people try to regain control by obsessively thinking through every possible scenario. Whether it's a big life decision, a social situation, or even just planning for the future, the fear of the unknown can lead your mind into overdrive. Overthinkers often believe that by thinking things through over and over, they'll somehow arrive at a perfect solution or prevent mistakes from happening. However, this only creates more stress and anxiety because ultimately, no amount of thinking can guarantee certainty. Fear of failure is another major trigger. Many people overthink because they're terrified of making the wrong decision. The possibility of failing, or even just not being perfect, can cause them to overanalyze every option, hoping to find the choice that guarantees success. The irony is that this obsessive analysis often leads to more hesitation, which in turn increases the chances of failure. Instead of moving forward with confidence, the fear of failure keeps people trapped in a cycle of doubt and second-guessing. Perfectionism is closely related to this fear. Perfectionists often have impossibly high standards for themselves and their work. They believe that everything they do must be flawless, and as a result, they spend an inordinate amount of time overthinking every detail. They may delay taking action because they're constantly refining, reworking, or second-guessing their plans. This perfectionism not only fuels overthinking but also leads to procrastination, as the fear of not doing something perfectly becomes paralyzing. It's important to recognize that no action or decision will ever be perfect, and striving for perfection only amplifies the cycle of overthinking. Another trigger can be past negative experiences. If you've been through difficult or traumatic events, your mind may be on high alert, trying to prevent those experiences from happening again. This hypervigilance can lead to overthinking as you constantly replay past mistakes, hoping to find ways to avoid repeating them. For example, if you've been hurt in a previous relationship, you might overthink every interaction in a new relationship, analyzing every word and gesture in an attempt to protect yourself from future pain. However, This focus on the past often prevents you from enjoying the present or moving forward in a healthy way. External pressure and societal expectations can also play a significant role in triggering overthinking. In a world where success is often measured by external markers, career achievements, wealth, social status, it's easy to become consumed with worry about whether you're making the right choices in life. Social media, in particular, exacerbates this issue. Constantly comparing yourself to others, whether it's their career milestones, relationships, or lifestyle, can trigger a sense of inadequacy and lead to overthinking your own decisions. You may begin to question whether you're on the right path or if you should be doing more, often leading to an unhealthy cycle of self-doubt. Once you become aware of these triggers, the next step is learning how to recognize them in real time. This isn't always easy, especially when overthinking has become a deeply ingrained habit. However, with practice, you can start to notice the patterns. Pay attention to when your mind begins to race. What's happening in that moment? Are you facing an uncertain situation, or are you worrying about being perfect? Is a past experience influencing your current thought process? By pinpointing the triggers, you can catch yourself before you fall too deep into the spiral of overthinking. The goal isn't to completely eliminate the triggers. After all, uncertainty, failure, and external pressures are part of life. Instead, the focus should be on changing how you respond to these triggers. When you feel the urge to overthink, acknowledge the trigger, but resist the temptation to go down the rabbit hole of excessive analysis. It's about learning to tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty and imperfection, rather than trying to think your way out of it. Once you've identified the triggers that lead to overthinking, the next step is to equip yourself with practical strategies to overcome it. While breaking the habit of overthinking isn't something that happens overnight, there are several tools and techniques you can start using immediately to quiet your mind and regain control over your thoughts. One of the most effective strategies is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of focusing your attention on the present moment without judgment. Overthinking is largely fueled by focusing on the past or the future, replaying past mistakes, or worrying about potential future outcomes. Mindfulness brings you back to the here and now, reminding you that the only moment you truly have control over is the present one. When you catch yourself overthinking, a simple mindfulness exercise like focusing on your breathing or the physical sensations in your body can ground you and pull you out of the cycle of rumination. Breathing exercises are also a powerful way to combat overthinking. When you're stuck in your head, your body often reflects this stress. Your breathing becomes shallow and your heart rate increases, creating a feedback loop that reinforces anxiety. By taking slow, deep breaths, you can calm your nervous system and signal to your brain that it's time to relax. A simple technique is the 4-7-8 breathing method. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and exhale slowly for 8 seconds. This helps reduce stress and shift your focus away from obsessive thoughts. Another strategy is journaling. Writing down your thoughts allows you to externalize them, getting them out of your head and onto paper. Often, overthinking happens because we're trying to mentally hold on to too many thoughts at once, creating a mental traffic jam. By writing things down, you can organize your thoughts and gain clarity. Journaling also helps you see patterns in your thinking, and sometimes just seeing your worries on paper makes them seem less overwhelming. It's a way to process your emotions and make sense of what's going on inside your head, without getting stuck in endless analysis. In addition to mindfulness and journaling, it's essential to establish a healthy routine that helps prevent overthinking before it even starts. Regular physical activity, for instance, is a proven method for reducing stress and clearing the mind. Exercise releases endorphins, which are natural mood boosters, and it also gives you a break from your thoughts. Whether it's going for a run, practicing yoga, or lifting weights, physical activity can shift your focus from your mind to your body, providing a much-needed mental reset. Another aspect of a healthy routine is getting adequate sleep. Overthinkers often struggle with sleep issues because their minds are too active to shut down at night. But lack of sleep only worsens overthinking, creating a vicious cycle. Prioritizing good sleep hygiene, such as going to bed at the same time every night, limiting screen time before bed, and creating a relaxing pre-sleep routine, can help ensure that your mind gets the rest it needs to function properly during the day. A well-rested mind is better equipped to handle stress and less likely to fall into the trap of overthinking. Learning how to limit decision fatigue is another key element in overcoming overthinking. Decision fatigue occurs when you're forced to make too many decisions in a short period of time, leading to mental exhaustion. The more decisions you have to make, the more likely you are to overthink them. One way to combat this is by simplifying your life where possible. Reduce the number of decisions you have to make on a daily basis by creating routines or setting limits. For example, decide in advance what you'll wear for the week or plan your meals ahead of time. By minimizing trivial decisions, you can conserve mental energy for more important tasks. In moments where overthinking threatens to overwhelm you, it's also helpful to shift your perspective. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 days, 5 months, or 5 years? Often, the things we overthink aren't as significant as they seem in the moment. By adopting a long-term view, you can reduce the intensity of your immediate worries. Another technique is to imagine the worst-case scenario, and then ask yourself, could I survive this? In most cases, even the worst outcome isn't as catastrophic as your mind makes it out to be, and acknowledging this can help reduce the fear that fuels overthinking. Lastly, remember that it's okay to ask for help. Overcoming overthinking isn't something you have to do alone. Talking to a trusted friend, family member, or therapist can provide you with an outside perspective and help you process your thoughts in a healthier way. Sometimes simply verbalizing your worries can make them feel more manageable. A supportive listener can offer reassurance, challenge your thought patterns, or just remind you that you're not alone in your struggle. These strategies aren't about eliminating thoughts altogether. That's not realistic or even desirable. Instead, they're about learning how to manage your thoughts so that they don't control you. The goal is to break free from the cycle of rumination, make room for clear thinking, and take decisive action without getting lost in endless analysis. One of the most crucial aspects of overcoming overthinking is learning how to take control of your thoughts. It's easy to feel as though your mind has a life of its own, constantly pulling you into cycles of doubt and analysis. But the truth is that you have more control over your mental state than you realize. Taking control of your thoughts doesn't mean trying to suppress them or force them to stop. That would only lead to more frustration and stress. Instead, it's about shifting the way you relate to your thoughts and developing healthier mental habits. A key first step is understanding that not every thought deserves attention. Our minds produce thousands of thoughts each day, and many of them are irrelevant or unhelpful. Overthinkers often make the mistake of treating every thought as important, believing that each one must be analyzed or acted upon. But the reality is that thoughts are just mental events. They don't all carry meaning or truth. By learning to observe your thoughts without immediately engaging with them, you can create distance between yourself and the mental chatter. This idea ties into the concept of cognitive diffusion, a technique used in mindfulness-based therapies. Cognitive diffusion involves recognizing that your thoughts are just that, thoughts, not facts. When you overthink, you tend to become entangled with your thoughts, treating them as reality. But by practicing cognitive diffusion, you can start to see your thoughts for what they are: fleeting mental events that don't necessarily reflect the truth of a situation. One simple exercise is to mentally label your thoughts as they arise. For example, instead of thinking, "I'm going to fail," you might reframe it as, "I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail." This small shift in language helps create emotional distance and reduces the power your thoughts hold over you. Another way to regain control is by focusing on what you can control versus what you can't. Overthinking often arises from a desire to control every aspect of life, from the outcome of a decision to how others perceive you. But the reality is that much of life is beyond your control. You can't predict the future, you can't control how others will react, and you can't avoid every possible mistake. What you can control is your own actions and how you respond to situations. By focusing your energy on what's within your sphere of influence, you can reduce the anxiety that comes from trying to manage the uncontrollable. It's also important to understand the difference between controlling your thoughts and letting them flow naturally. Trying to forcibly stop certain thoughts or feelings is often counterproductive. The more you resist a thought, the more it tends to persist. Instead of fighting your thoughts, practice allowing them to exist without judgment. Acknowledge them, but don't get caught up in them. This approach can help you break free from the cycle of overthinking, where one thought leads to another and then another, until you're trapped in an endless loop. In addition to these techniques, developing a proactive mindset is crucial. Overthinking is a passive mental state. You're caught up in thinking about problems, but not actively solving them. Shifting to a proactive mindset means focusing on action rather than endless analysis. When faced with a problem, ask yourself, what can I do about this right now? Instead of getting stuck in what-if scenarios, look for practical solutions and take steps to address the issue, even if they're small steps. Action is the antidote to overthinking. The more you take control of your actions, the less power overthinking will have. A proactive mindset also involves learning to trust yourself and your decisions. Overthinkers often lack self-trust, constantly doubting whether they're making the right choices. But the truth is, no one can predict the future with certainty, and no decision is ever completely risk-free. Learning to trust yourself means accepting that you can't always know the outcome, but you can trust in your ability to handle whatever happens. This shift in mindset can free you from the paralysis of indecision that overthinking often causes. You don't need to know all the answers. You just need to have confidence in your ability to adapt and learn from the outcome. Finally, it's important to embrace imperfection. A major driver of overthinking is the belief that everything must be perfect, whether it's making the perfect decision, saying the perfect thing, or ensuring that everything in life goes according to plan. But perfection is an illusion. Trying to achieve it only leads to stress, anxiety, and endless overanalysis. Accepting imperfection doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means recognizing that mistakes are a natural part of life, and that no amount of thinking will make you immune to them. In fact, embracing imperfection often leads to more creativity, resilience, and growth. When you stop obsessing over perfection, you free yourself to take action, learn from your experiences, and move forward with greater confidence. In the end, controlling your thoughts is less about forcing them to change and more about changing your relationship to them. By learning to let go of the need for control, trusting yourself, and taking action in the face of uncertainty, you can break free from the mental prison of overthinking. Remember, the goal isn't to have fewer thoughts. It's to have a healthier, more empowering relationship with the thoughts you do have. To fully overcome overthinking, it's essential to cultivate a mindset of clarity and focus. Overthinking thrives in mental clutter and confusion, where doubts and fears are allowed to grow unchecked. The antidote to this is clarity, knowing where your priorities lie and having a clear sense of direction. But how do you create a mindset that promotes clarity and focus, especially in a world that is constantly pulling your attention in different directions? The first step in creating clarity is learning to focus on the present. Overthinkers often get lost in the past or worry excessively about the future, forgetting that the only moment they can truly control is the present one. By training your mind to stay anchored in the here and now, you reduce the mental noise that feeds overthinking. Mindfulness, as discussed earlier, is a powerful tool for staying present, but there are also other practices you can incorporate into your daily life. For example, setting clear daily goals can help keep your mind focused on what's immediately important, rather than getting sidetracked by hypothetical scenarios or distant worries. Another crucial element of clarity is simplifying your mental space. Overthinking often happens because there are too many thoughts, options, and distractions competing for your attention. Simplification is about reducing this mental clutter. One way to do this is by making decisions ahead of time, as we discussed with reducing decision fatigue. But it's also about knowing what's truly important in your life. This requires setting clear priorities and learning to say no to things that don't align with your goals or values. When your mind is focused on what matters most, there's less room for unnecessary worry or overanalysis. Focusing on solutions, not problems, is another powerful way to maintain mental clarity. Overthinkers tend to dwell on problems, constantly analyzing them from every angle, which often leads to feelings of helplessness or paralysis. Shifting your mindset to focus on solutions forces you to take a more active role in addressing challenges. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" or "What if things go wrong?" you begin to ask, "What can I do to fix this?" or "What's the next step I can take?" This proactive mindset not only reduces overthinking, but also builds your confidence, as you start to see yourself as capable of solving problems rather than being overwhelmed by them. Cultivating self-discipline is another essential part of creating a mindset of clarity and focus. Discipline isn't just about willpower. It's about developing habits that keep you aligned with your goals and prevent you from getting lost in overthinking. For example, creating structured routines for your day can help limit distractions and keep your mind focused on what needs to be done. Whether it's setting specific times for work, exercise, or relaxation, a disciplined routine gives your mind less space to wander into unproductive thoughts. Over time, discipline helps you build the mental resilience needed to keep your thoughts in check and prevent them from spiraling out of control. Another key aspect of clarity is decisiveness. Overthinking often stems from a fear of making the wrong choice, which leads to indecision. But indecision is one of the greatest enemies of clarity. Developing a decisive mindset means training yourself to make decisions quickly and confidently, without getting bogged down by endless analysis. A helpful rule is the 80-20 principle. Make a decision when you have 80% of the information you need, rather than waiting for 100%. The truth is, you'll rarely have all the information you want, and waiting for perfect clarity often leads to missed opportunities or unnecessary stress. By making decisions more quickly, you'll learn to trust your instincts and move forward with confidence, reducing the space for overthinking to creep in. Lastly, building self-confidence plays a critical role in cultivating clarity and focus. Overthinkers often struggle with self-doubt, constantly questioning their abilities and second-guessing their choices. But clarity comes from trusting yourself, your judgment, your abilities, and your capacity to handle whatever comes your way. Building self-confidence doesn't happen overnight, but it can be nurtured through small, consistent actions. Start by celebrating small wins, acknowledging your strengths, and recognizing that mistakes are part of the learning process. The more you practice trusting yourself, the less likely you are to fall into the trap of overthinking every decision. Mental clarity also comes from accepting that life is inherently uncertain. No matter how much we plan or analyze, we can never fully predict or control what will happen. Embracing this uncertainty frees you from the constant need to overthink every possible outcome. Instead of trying to figure everything out in advance, you can approach life with a sense of openness and adaptability. This doesn't mean being careless. It means recognizing that you are capable of handling whatever challenges arise, even if they don't go according to plan. In the end, a mindset of clarity and focus is about simplifying your life, trusting yourself, and taking decisive action without getting caught up in overanalysis. It's about learning to quiet the mental noise and focus on what truly matters. The more you practice these habits, the more you'll find that overthinking has less and less control over you. Remember, clarity isn't something that just happens. It's something you create moment by moment, decision by decision. And as you build this mindset, overthinking will no longer dominate your thoughts. Instead, you'll approach life with a sense of purpose, confidence, and peace.